In a world where African nations have long been forced to beg for security, one leader has decided to build it from scratch. In the heart of West Africa, a quiet revolution is underway. Under the bold leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is rewriting the rules, taking the first steps toward military independence by launching the continent's first indigenous defense industry. No more foreign aid with strings attached. No more waiting on embargoed weapons while villages burn. For the first time, an African nation is saying, we will arm ourselves, defend ourselves, and determine our own fate. But this moment is bigger than Burkina Faso. This is a direct challenge to the old order, one where foreign military bases litter African soil and Western powers dictate who gets to survive and who doesn't. Could this be the dawn of true African sovereignty? Or will it ignite a new kind of war, one fought not just with bullets, but with influence, pressure, and propaganda? Either way, history is being made, and you're watching it unfold. If you believe in Africa's right to self-determination, show your support. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation, because what's happening now could reshape an entire continent. For decades, Burkina Faso has stood as a symbol of unfulfilled potential, a nation caught in the clutches of foreign control, fighting to define its place in a post-colonial world. Since gaining independence from France in 1960, the country has struggled to break free from its former colonizers' shadow. French troops, military advisors, and economic policies have long shaped the nation's trajectory under the guise of cooperation. But beneath that surface was an uncomfortable truth. Burkina Faso wasn't steering its own course. It was surviving, often barely, under the weight of external interests. That imbalance became even more pronounced after 2015, when the country was plunged into a violent insurgency. Islamist militants swept across northern and eastern regions, exploiting poverty, political instability, and porous borders. Entire towns were seized, schools shuttered, farmers abandoned their land. Over 2 million people were displaced, and more than 10,000 lives were lost in a war that seemed to have no end. Foreign assistance, especially from France, flowed in, but with it came frustration. French troops, deployed under the banner of counterterrorism, failed to secure lasting peace. Their presence became a symbol of impotence and dependency, a bitter reminder of promises unkept. Then came Captain Ibrahim Traoré. In September 2022, at just 34 years old, Traoré led a popular coup that ousted the previous military government. Unlike the leaders before him, Traoré wasn't content to manage the crisis. He wanted to end it. A seasoned soldier who had served in Mali as part of UN peacekeeping missions and led counter-insurgency operations at home, Traoré understood the stakes. And more importantly, he understood the source of the problem. Within months of taking power, in February 2023, he made a move that stunned the world. He ordered all French military forces to leave Burkina Faso. It was a clean break from the past, and a message to every Burkinabe citizen: the era of begging for security was over. But Traoré's ambition didn't stop there. His leadership has drawn powerful comparisons to Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's iconic revolutionary who ruled in the 1980s. Like Sankara, Traoré dresses in military fatigues, speaks with defiance, and champions Pan-African self-determination. And just like Sankara, he believes true independence means more than a national flag or a seat at international summits. It means controlling your resources, producing your own food, arming your own people. That vision took a monumental leap forward in January 2025, when Prime Minister John Emmanuel Ouedraogo stepped before the nation with an announcement that changed everything. Burkina Faso was launching its own defense industry. No longer would the country depend on foreign suppliers for rifles, drones, or armored vehicles. No longer would the Burkinabe military wait helplessly for approval from Western capitals to protect their people. Instead, engineers, machinists, and military experts from Burkina Faso would build what the nation needed on its own soil. It was a radical departure from how things had always been done, not just in Burkina Faso, but across Africa. No African nation had ever established a fully homegrown defense manufacturing system. This wasn't just a policy change, it was a declaration of sovereignty, a rebuke to a global system that had kept Africa dependent for generations, and it sent a clear message to the world. Burkina Faso was no longer content to play by someone else's rules. But with this bold new path came questions. Could a landlocked, war-torn country really build a defense sector from scratch? Could it train the workforce, fund the infrastructure, and survive the inevitable backlash from the powers it once relied on? For Traoré and his government, the answer was simple. They had no choice. The alternative was more bloodshed, more displacement, and more humiliation. So they began, brick by brick, bullet by bullet, to build a different future. This was not just the beginning of a national project. It was the opening shot in a continental revolution. A shift that would ripple far beyond Burkina Faso's borders, challenging everything the world thought it knew about African nations, their capabilities, and their right to defend themselves. And it all started with one man saying, "Enough." So why now? Why is Burkina Faso, a nation battered by war and economic hardship, taking this leap? The answer lies in years of global manipulation disguised as partnership. When Burkina Faso dared to chart an independent course, arms embargoes followed, deliberate moves by Western powers to withhold weapons and force submission. It's a pattern across Africa. Those who resist find themselves choked by silence, while those who obey are armed, but never free. For decades, foreign aid has masked dependency. Western countries offer support but tie it to austerity, privatization, or political obedience. France and the US may offer security partnerships, but they come with troops, surveillance, and economic interference. In contrast, Burkina Faso has turned to nations like China, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, not for salvation, but for sovereign cooperation. Still, even this isn't true independence. Only self-sufficiency can offer that. And the next battlefront is energy. With ambitions to harness civil nuclear power, Traoré has highlighted the need to rethink the Pelindaba Treaty, a document signed in 1996 that bars African nations from developing nuclear weapons. Over 50 African countries signed it, unknowingly locking themselves into strategic inferiority. Sovereignty isn't just about borders, it's about deterrence, and that means capability. Breaking this cycle of dependence, Traoré has rejected IMF loans and foreign military bases. Instead, Burkina Faso is turning inward. Its own gold and agricultural output are being rerouted to fund the defense industry. The 2023 opening of Burkina Faso's first gold refinery marked a critical turning point. No longer will raw resources be shipped off for foreign profits. Now, they'll fuel a domestic military industry designed to protect the very people who mine them. Add to that the food self-sufficiency movement. Traoré's Operation Agro-Pastoral Offensive and the Presidential Initiative for Food Security have already produced millions of tons of cereal, reducing the country's dependency on foreign food imports and freeing up capital for defense. This isn't just a symbolic step, it's strategic. The new industry aims to produce locally made rifles, drones, armored vehicles, and surveillance equipment, all tailored to Burkina Faso's harsh terrain and asymmetric warfare. The Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP, a grassroots civilian militia, will be equipped and trained not with foreign hand-me-downs, but with homegrown tools built for their mission. Naturally, this has drawn fire from the West. NATO officials, French politicians, and American diplomats have labeled Traoré's vision as radical and dangerous. President Emmanuel Macron has publicly lamented the loss of French influence in the Sahel. Washington, meanwhile, has issued warnings about cutting off aid. But here's the truth. Their presence has often meant instability, not peace. Their military bases serve more as Trojan horses, vehicles for control, not defense. Burkina Faso has chosen a different path. What do you think? Should African nations pull out of the Pelindaba Treaty and take control of their own defense capabilities? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're reading them all. What began as a bold decision in Ouagadougou is now sending tremors across an entire continent. Burkina Faso's defiance has reignited a fire that once flickered in the hearts of Africa's greatest revolutionaries. It's more than policy, it's a movement. The Alliance of Sahel States, AES, made up of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is gaining traction as the core of a new Pan-African awakening. These nations are not only expelling foreign troops, they're expelling the colonial mindset that told them they couldn't survive without them. And the ripple effect is real. By early 2025, even Côte d'Ivoire, a longtime French ally, announced the withdrawal of French forces following massive public pressure. Countries across Central and West Africa are watching closely. The message is spreading. Sovereignty is possible. Traoré's leadership has positioned Burkina Faso not just as a nation reclaiming control, but as a beacon of anti-imperialist resistance. And the proof is in the transformation. Economically, the new defense sector is doing more than producing weapons. It's creating jobs, thousands of them. Engineers, machinists, miners, logisticians, an entire ecosystem of skilled labor is forming. Universities are evolving, introducing programs to train a new generation of Burkinabe in defense technologies, drone engineering, and tactical systems. For a country long trapped in cycles of unemployment and poverty, this is a lifeline. It doesn't stop there. With gold now refined locally and agricultural revenues retained, the government is reinvesting in long-neglected areas. Clinics are being built, roads are being paved, schools are being opened, not with loans from the IMF, but with resources generated by the people, for the people. The broken loop of extraction and debt is finally beginning to close. But perhaps the most profound transformation is cultural. In January 2025, Traoré received a thunderous standing ovation at Ghana's Black Star Square during President Mahama's inauguration. Dressed in fatigues, sidearm holstered, he stood as a living echo of Thomas Sankara, a man who dared to dream of a liberated Africa. While elites dismiss him as a populist, millions across the continent see him as a symbol of courage, someone who speaks the truth without fear and acts without apology. Of course, the road ahead is anything but smooth. Technical limitations remain, infrastructure must keep pace, and the threat of Islamist insurgency still looms. Global powers are unlikely to watch quietly as their influence wanes, but hope, real, palpable hope, has taken root. As one young Burkinabe said, "We may be suffering now, but at least it's our suffering, not theirs." That single sentence captures it all. This isn't just a political shift. It's a continental reawakening. It's a call to African leaders everywhere. Decolonize your minds. Stand up. Build inward. Because the chains that bind Africa today are no longer physical. They're mental, economic, and ideological. And as Burkina Faso is showing the world, they can be broken. The era of begging is over. The age of building has begun. Burkina Faso is not just building weapons. It's building a future where Africa no longer begs to survive, but stands tall to defend itself. What we are witnessing is more than the birth of a defense industry. It's the rebirth of a nation that refused to kneel. A people long silenced by foreign interference are finally reclaiming their voice, their power, and their place on the global stage. This isn't about war. It's about sovereignty. It's about a landlocked country, scarred by decades of terrorism and colonial hangovers, daring to chart its own course. Under Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso has made it clear: the era of dependency is over. No more waiting for permission. No more relying on weapons that come with strings attached. They are arming themselves with tools made by their own hands, forged from their own gold, and powered by their own will. And as the West scrambles to respond, issuing threats, withholding aid, spinning narratives, the people of Burkina Faso remain unfazed. Why? Because for the first time in generations, their future isn't being written in Paris or Washington. It's being written in Ouagadougou. This story isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about what's possible for every African nation that has been told it's too poor, too unstable, or too dependent to ever rise on its own. It's about Pan-Africanism taking on new life, not in speeches but in action. It's about a continent shaking off its chains and daring to dream beyond colonial boundaries. So, if this story moved you, if it lit a spark in you, don't just watch. Be part of the movement, like this video. Subscribe for more stories that challenge the mainstream. And share this with someone who needs to hear that Africa is not broken. It's breaking free. This is more than a defense project. It's a symbol of what Africa can become when it refuses to be defined by its past. When it stops asking for validation and starts building its own legacy. Africa is not waiting for permission anymore. It's building its own destiny. And this is only the beginning.